Hey there everyone, this is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com, and in this video I'm going to share some music production tips and techniques while recreating the beat in Lauv's I Like Me Better. Now this was a huge request from all the subscribers on this channel, so thank you for the request, and if you'd like to see more, definitely let me know your requests in the comment section below. So first let me show you the end result. So I came across a drum break, not just listening to the reference, I tried to find a drum loop that was at least close to the basic rhythm. And when I found something that matched the pocket and rhythm, I stayed with that and then tried to match the texture as best as possible. And so here's the clip, and I'll go ahead and preview that right now. Now what I'm going to do is simply just click on this clip and drag it over to my arrangement window here in Ableton Live so that I have a better way to actually chop up this drum break and create the rhythm that I'm looking for. So by clicking down on the clip and by hitting the tab button on my computer keyboard, I can then just drag and drop this into my arrangement view. Once I have this in my arrangement view, it's just a matter of just chopping up the actual rhythm so that it kind of just mirrors what we're hearing in the reference. So what I'm going to do is just copy this first hit here and then just Command E to just slice that up and then just place this extra hit right here and then drag that snare drum hit that we have there. Now to make it a little less stiff on that drum break, you want to zoom in as much as you can and just kind of drag to the right that kick drum and just kind of crossfade that a little bit so that it just blends into that snare drum and it has more of a natural feel to it. All right, so then here we have a drum rack loaded with some sounds. And by the way, if you want to download these sounds or have access to this Ableton Live session to follow along with in this video, you're more than welcome to. I'd like to send this to your inbox absolutely free. Just click the link below in the description box to have access to that. So now let's go ahead and click this MIDI region here, and we have our kick, snap, and clap pattern. It's just mirroring the same pattern that we've created with our drum loop here. Now what I want to do is add a hi-hat pattern that's got a bit of a swing to it. So if I click here and using my pencil tool by hitting the B button on my computer keyboard, I can draw in the notes. Now, really quick for Ableton Live 11 users, you want to go into your settings, Command, comma, and make sure that your draw mode with pitch lock is on. The reason being is that as you're drawing, you could easily just have the pitch change while you're moving to the right or left, and that could be a little annoying. So what I want to do is into the settings, hit pitch lock on. And what that enables me to do now is just click without it actually shifting any notes or pitches while dragging my mouse to the right or left. So here's our hi-hat pattern. That's way too stiff. So we want to add a bit of swing and a bit of groove to that. So the quickest way to do that is head over here to the left-hand side and where you see groove and click the browse so that you can open up your groove pool browser. And this allows you to just utilize any of the groove templates that are on here. And what that's doing is you can add a swing or specific feel to not just your MIDI drums, but this can also be added onto audio tracks. So heading over here where it says swing, you see swing 16th 66. Let's just press that. And that's giving you a preview of how drastic that swing feel will be when you implement it to your MIDI region. Now, determining on the number is going to determine the degree or how drastic that swing is going to be. So look, compare 16th 73 over to 16th 52. 73 sounds like you're galloping on some kind of wild zebra through the Serengeti. I don't know. But what we want to do is now just find a right balance. And if I keep browsing all the way down, they even have a swing logic 8th and 16th here. So I'm assuming that's the swing logic, like maybe Logic Pro's swing feel. So I'm going to go ahead and use 16th 59 Once I do that, I double click that, and then it enters into this little drop down menu here. Select that, choose the row of hi-hats, and then hit the arrow to implement that. And now, as you can see here, the hi-hats have shifted over to a new swing pattern. So let's take a listen. Much, much better. Now I also want to go ahead and mess around with the velocity. So that's going to be changing the overall dynamics of that hi-hat. So what I need to do is first go to the hi-hat and make sure that I have the velocity set at a very high value. So we'll keep it at 80%. And that means that it's going to be extra sensitive to any changes we make to the velocity. The lower the number is, the less sensitive it is to any changes to velocity. If it's at 100%, then it's really, really, really sensitive. So let's just leave it at 80%, going back to our hi-hats. And now right under here, while the hi-hats are selected, clicking your pencil tool and just clicking and dragging up and down. Let's just kind of create a nice, cool little wave so that the very beginning of the bars or the beats, the hi-hat is coming up in volume and then going down. Kind of like that. Great. Now let's just add a drum bus here. We're going to go to audio effects. We're going to go to drive. Look for a drum bus plugin, drag that right on top of our drum rack just to kind of beef everything up. I like to start low with the dry and wet and then crank it to where I like it. All right, now let's just listen to this and the drum loop and see what we've got. And it's adding good depth, but now we need to shape the drum loop to kind of now hide a little bit behind what I call the drum rack, which is our foreground beat, right? So go to the loop, let's EQ, let's take away some of the low end here and some of the high end. That's gonna make it warmer, and that's gonna leave room for the kick drum that we've just added in the drum rack here. And then turning on our overdrive plugin here to actually add a bit more grit. I'm just using another EQ here, the Fab Filter EQ, to just carve out some frequencies to kind of blend them together now. And then a utility plugin here, and I'm gonna use the mid-sign option on this utility plugin to kind of widen up the drum loop. I'm gonna widen it up, push it a little bit more to the side, and let the drum rack be a little bit more in the mid. So this is with, let's group all this and then turn this on and off. Kind of cool how now it's kind of hidden and tucked away. You've got the drum rack here and the loop is just hidden a little bit. Now let's go ahead and group these two. And since we've got the drum rack layering a little bit ahead of the drum loop, a compressor would do nicely to kind of pushing them and gluing them a little bit more together. So going back to our audio effects, head over to dynamics, glue compressor, drop that on the group. Now I grouped these two tracks together very much the same way as busing this or sending this to an auxiliary track or however which way you have it routed in your DAW. Let's give somewhat of a slow attack and about a medium release or quick release there, and just dial the threshold back. Without the compressor, you can definitely notice the difference when it's boom, got. So like the quieter parts of the drum break and the hi-hat are very noticeable. Then with the compressor, they kind of comes up a little bit more. We want more of that balanced dynamic performance there. So now I want to do some saturation with these two on here. So let's go to our drive color saturator, place that on there. And here's something really, really cool I want to show you to do. I want to balance between cranking up the drive and then lowering the output at the same time so that when I give more drive, I'm actually just balancing the output out. So it's not just tricking me by making things louder. So what I want to do is to have one knob that can kind of control that balance. The more drive I give, the less the more output I'm taking away. So let's just right click on the saturator and choose group. And this is going to create a audio effects rack. Then simply click the macro knob here and let's map macro 1 right? To the drive and to the output. So I'm gonna right click on this, map it to macro 1, and we're gonna right click on the output and map it to macro 1 as well. And then what we need to do is hit the map button and determine the parameters. So right now, macro 1 to the drive, the saturated drive. So for macro 1, I wanna make sure that the minimum is set to 0 dB so that when I turn my macro knob all the way to the default, the 0 position, the drive is set to 0 dB. And the max will keep it at 36. Here, we're gonna do a little bit of the opposite. So we need to make sure that the minimum is to 0 dB and that the maximum output would be all the way down at 36, okay? Then, when we go back into our map here, what we're gonna see is when we crank our macro 1, the more drive we crank, it's also peeling back the output as well. That way, we get the saturation, we get the tone of the saturation, but we're not getting the loudness. All right, now I wanna focus on the string plucks that we can hear throughout the song. So for that, I'm gonna be using Native Instruments Contact Library, and I'm just going with the stock pizzicato strings. They offer a nice little pluck sound, and that's gonna be what we're looking for. So in the factory library for the Native Instruments sound bank, I'm going into orchestral, looking for the strings here, and I went with the string ensemble and chose the pizzicato. So this is what we have. Now to give it the tail that we're looking for, let's add some reverb onto that. So over here in our audio effects, we'll go over to our reverb folder and just drop that right on top of that. And then let's go ahead into our EQ and filter. And I'm gonna place that before the reverb. So I'm gonna use the filter to really, eliminate some of that, the high-end presence of the strings, put a blanket over it, so to speak. Now what's cool is we can automate the filter frequency so that in certain parts of the song, such as like in the beginning of the chorus, we can have the filter just open up for that section. So it becomes brighter. So we hear that more of the string pluck sound. And then just click this so that we have an initial attack of that and then it filters out. All right, now let's go ahead and focus on the guitar part that we can hear throughout the verses. So this was just me just playing my Fender Tele directly into Ableton Live. It was an easy enough part for me to play. Usually when it gets a little bit more complex, I might utilize other plugins and stuff to recreate the riff. But I like the direct signal, and I just want to kind of combine that with a little bit more definition and presence. So I'm going to start with the Ableton Live amp plugin here, and I'm going to use the blues model. And then put the cabinet on. Now I want to still maintain some of that direct signal, so I'm going to get more dry, use this dry and wet knob here. Let's get a little bit more of the dry. And then use an EQ to just take some of the low mid away. Then I'm using this Kickstart plugin here to give a little bit of some pulse and some kind of movement going on with the guitar. Being that I'm not the greatest guitar player, I would have naturally just kind of been playing that, kind of like, velocity. So I'm using that to kind of help create that same vibe. And then here is a chorus to kind of just widen up this single guitar part. And let's give some space here. So I'm going to send some of this guitar on return track B, which has a stock Ableton Live big room reverb. And then next, I'm gonna have the 808 handle a lot of the sub energy throughout the track. And this is an 808 instrument that I've created, which you can have access to and download for free using the link below in the description box. So here I have an 808 sample, and then I'm using an amp plugin here set to the heavy mode and balancing that out to add some harmonic frequency there, just add some grit, compressing that a little bit, and then the EQ to just take some of the high and energy that we added and just focus really on that low end. And then we have some side chaining going on after that. I'm going to set that to drum rack and choose the kick drum. And here's the 808. All right, now let's still focus on that vocal riff that is really the star of the show with this whole song. I mean, it's what makes this song just come to life. So to kind of recreate that same type of vibe and energy, let's go ahead and walk you through how I did that. So I've recorded myself just humming the main line. I don't actually have no idea what the artist is saying, so I did my best to kind of just replicate the same type of vibe. Warning, I will sound like a buffalo drowning in a pool of tomato sauce. All right, so let's do some tuning. We're going to start off with tuning. I'm going to use the auto tune access here. Just straightforward tuning. We're in the key of A major. That's fine. And then what's really going to create the overall texture is I'm going to be using iZotope's Vocal Synth 2. So for this, we're going to start with heading over to our Polyvox module, which is all the way here on the right, and just shifting the formats all the way to 12, and then mixing it with so I'm just kind of mixing that halfway, putting the distortion on. And then here we can actually include like a lower octave. So I'll go ahead and put a sub octave there and blend that in as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and enable the talk box. And this is all just really adding that texture that we're looking for and increasing the width here. Okay, once I got that, I'll probably lower the Polyvox just a little bit. And then let's go ahead and use a bit of room reverb. So I'm going to be using the Valhalla Room plugin. And just some EQing here to just take away some unwanted low end and low mid. Once I'm happy with the sound and texture that I've got there, I'm going to duplicate this track, Command D, and then simply select all the regions there and highlight them. Hold Shift, select all the regions, and then go a whole octave higher here. So it's 12 semitones, and I'm going to go from Beats to Complex Pro. That's what we need to do. And now let's go ahead and listen to that. And now just kind of blend the two in together. And then simply just kind of, let's group these two here. And we'll call that Vox group. And now what I want to do is kind of automate. I want to add a little bit more flange to the overall vocal. So let me go over here. I love using this plugin by Waves. It's the Metaflange plugin. I'm going to go here, Metaflange Stereo, and drop that on the group. And just widen that up and bring the mix down to maybe 10. And then right click on my return track C, where I have a Valhalla vintage verb here set to a bright hall. And what I want to do is just automate certain moments of this vocal to pop out. So let's hit show automation at C. And then at these little parts here, we'll just raise this up. And we'll do the same thing here, but not as much. A little bit. This one can go all the way. This one can go all the way to the top. And then just simply duplicate that. All right, now let's see what it sounds like with everybody else. Now, I first want to say thank you to all the subscribers to this channel and for those of you who recommended this song for me to break down. I hope you found it encouraging and helpful in some way. And as I mentioned before in this video, you can download the sounds and this project and follow along absolutely free. And as well, I want to give you a sample pack loaded with sounds and loops and construction kits that you can use absolutely royalty free in your projects and implement them in your workflow. And not just this session, but many of the sessions that I've included on this YouTube channel can be accessed just by clicking the link below in the description box or visiting beatacademy.com/pack. And I'll send that direct link to you in your inbox as soon as possible. Now, if you're serious about wanting to learn how to produce your very own music and you're looking to take your next step with your music production, then I want to provide you with the professional mentorship and guidance that you need. Visit beatacademy.com for more information on how you can do exactly that. Until then, be sure to like this video and subscribe so you can stay up to date with more videos coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.